Hi everyone, and good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you are connecting from. And once again, I say a very big welcome to you. Welcome to another session of our financial modeling bootcamp, time out with Victor. And I hope it's been an interesting session so far. And once again, we're very glad to have you. So you can just type in the chat box so that I'm sure we are all on the same page and we can kickstart the session. So once again, I say a very big welcome to every one of us. Just type in the chat box so that I'm sure we have your attention. Right. Okay, so let's get straight to it. Let me stop my video sharing so that we can all concentrate on the screen. Yes, so last session, we were able to build out our operation input and we were able to work on our product pricing and also the product quantity. So for the product pricing, we stated what the base price would be. I also incorporated management's expected increment, right? And still remember that we said that we mentioned the management growth exclude the pricing inflation factor. So the pricing inflation factor is for us to be able to make provision for time value of money. And we went ahead to also impute our quantity of the forecast unit. So we have the base unit, then we incorporated seasonality into it so that we mirror the reality of how business operates in real life. And in considering that, we also factor in our product capacity factor. Right. So today, let's continue from where we stop. And you know what we are going to do? So let's just include our cost of sales below this, our product pricing. All right. So as I said, when you are building your model, just think about structure and a very good flow. So I was thinking maybe we should just create the cost of sales separately. But you know what? Since we have product pricing here, I will just come down here. So let's start together. First, let's rename this to, let's just call this revenue, revenue and cost of sales, so that it's easy for anyone to get that. With this section is basically our anything related to revenue and cost of sales. Okay, all right. Thank you, Samuel. The note taker. Yes, that's such a great write-up. I got the one you shared with me. Right, let me check. I saw one and it was very, very detailed. Like, let me see if I still, okay, if I still have it. I can display that. Okay, very good. I want you guys to see on my mailbox. Wow, such a well-detailed one. Yeah, but don't worry. Don't let me show you guys. But such a well-detailed one. Thank you for that. All right, so rename the second header to revenue and cost of sales. And here where we have this our product and pricing, what I'm going to do is I will insert a row before this my quantity. Okay, let me just 2 rows so that I have 1, 2, 3. So I have 3 rows between my annual counter and the quantity. So in case I shared the recording of the last session with everyone. So if you're able to use that to update your own version, and I also share this version with us after the last session. So if you prefer to pick it up from there, that is fine. Okay, so I will create 3 row like this. Now, as I said, always good to work smart. Try as much as possible to maintain the same structure when you are building your model. What I will do is I'll copy from this my product pricing down to my annual counter. I'll copy the entire row. I will just highlight the entire row. So my own is starting from row 58 to row 66. Okay, so I'll copy, Control C. I'll come on my row 68 right? But I created 3 rows, so the middle one. So I will highlight the entire row and like right click, and you see this insert copied cells. And if you prefer to use shortcuts, just highlight the entire row and press Ctrl Shift plus, and you can paste that same thing. You can paste it here. So let me do that again. Set insert 3. Make sure you have 3 rows between your annual counter and the quantity header. Now go to your product pricing. I like the product pricing from the header down to the annual counter. Copy. Make sure you leave 1 row after the annual counter. Click the entire row, right click and select insert cells. So you can see the insert cells option when you right click on the row number 68. So insert copied cells, and you have everything here now. Okay, so you can remove the additional space that you have below. So make sure you always have 1 space. Now this becomes our what? Our product. That is product or cost of sales. Then link the product name, link it to the product that we have up here. So we have the same structure. And remember when we created our formula for the product pricing, we had some cells that we logged, right? We logged the row for some, we logged the column for some. So that's one of the benefits, so that you can always reuse it while everything still maintain the same structure. So you can see. So make sure you check your formula if you do something like this, and make sure it's working perfectly and everything is connected to what is expected to. Okay, so if I go to our information request list, what's the client cost of sales? What's the client cost of sales? So please, in case you have any question, please, genuine question, please, just type it in the chat box and I will respond to that. So our cost of units, so 3.42, come in here, call this 3.4, right? So I can just type it here. So 3.42, so 3.42, then this other one, for the second product, 1.54, 1.54. Then this management group, just remove that. Just make that blank for now. And we are good to go. So straight look at your pricing, look at your cost of sales. Now still remember that we are still going to factor in inflation into it, right? But we've still made provision where management can decide to put any growth they want in any of the on annual basis. All right. So I know part of because one benefit of model is for someone else to be able to pick the model and understand the whole structure and be able to follow through, right? So I know this is more like a common practice. Okay, so let me do for one, then maybe you can try to do that on your own, but I just don't want that to waste our time. So for example, business timing, so to put it as number 1. So just like the way you read a book, so this become 1.1. Right, I know in Excel, well, we kind of have this macro that can help you with this automatic header. So this become 1.1, right? And it's just kind of make it easy for them to 1.1.2 like this. Just kind of make it easier for your user to read at times. And some people prefer to use color where they highlight the entire color. So they can either highlight the entire header one like this. Maybe use, let's assume they are kind of using this color. I'm just using an example so that you know. So they prefer to do it like this. If you prefer that, that's fine. So as I said, this you're flexible. You're allowed to be creative with your own. Right. Well, I always prefer this number, less color. So 2.2, and so it should just kind of make it easier for anyone looking through the model to be able to know that, oh, this is under section, this one is under this section, right? And this just 2.3 like that. Then our operation becomes bullet 3. Okay, then this becomes 3.1. So this is just you trying to make sure you create a good structure and easy for anyone to follow. So 3.1.1. Okay, just kind of do it like that, and it's easier for anyone to read. So 3.1.2, 3.1.3. I know because of these headers, people usually prefer to make sure this guy is almost up to like 4 headers. So this becomes header 1, header 2, header 3, header 4. Just be creative. Just try to make sure you put it in such a way that it's easy for someone to pick this up and understand what you are doing. Right. So this becomes 3.1.4. So for the quantity, you can see under the quantity we now have another sub. Just be creative with your, but I think I will leave the header here. All right. So products type 3.1.1 product pricing. Okay. So I think this product type should even be like a section, but let's just leave it. So cost of sales. Yeah. So we have just yes for the product type name, the product pricing, product cost of sales, and quantity. But maybe instead of calling this product cost of sales, let's just remove the product name and just call it cost of sales. Let's call it cost of sales. All right. So are we good? Are we good? Any question? Any question before we move to the next thing? We're still under our operation segment, so we've taken care of our revenue and also our cost of sales. So the next thing, let me copy this, our header, and let's call the next one, let's call it operating expenses. Okay, so let's call this operating expenses. So the business operating expenses. Please, do we have any question before we continue? Any question? Any question? So you can type in the chat box, don't worry. Added some rule immediately I joined. Oh, sorry, if you came in late, you know what I said? We start on the point at the start on one on the dot. So for our operating expenses, so the clients provided us with that. Okay, yes. So in our information request list, the clients provided us list of monthly operating expenses. Okay. I hope we have the same thing. I hope we have the same thing. Now, I'll come to the worksheet. So the information request list, the one we got from the clients. So just highlight everything from rent, leave salaries for now. I think we need to take care of that. So let's just copy this. I'll copy that. So maybe okay. Firstly, let's have our salaries. Let's have our salary here. Salaries and wages. So let's have that one here. Let's have that here, and below here, let's now have let's call this selling, general, and admin expenses, which we call SG and A. So let's have that here. I think this operating expense that will become 3 points. I think we already have 3.1 or 3. Okay, so this should be 3.2. Okay, SG and A. So under my SG and A, I can copy and paste those line items. Copy and paste it here. So add our currency. currency. So most times it's always good you state that USD per month, so that at least it's easy for the user to know. It's not always good we assume that they know that the inputs that we have, they are what they are on monthly basis. So most times you can just put your currency, put your join function, and type open my double quotes, right, slash, and put month there, so that it just kind of appear like this. It appears like this, USD per month. You can go to our information request list and copy this value and put them here. Put it in my input cell style. And below, you can now add SG and A, monthly SG and A, management, or let's just put SG and A incremental rate. So in case they decide the end of the period they want to increase any of the operating expenses. Okay. So the selling general and admin expenses, open the information request list Excel file that we have, which is what we got from the clients. We said we should copy all the line item, copy them, come here, paste it as value. So the fonts, this is also part of kind of good uh, Excel file management. So here the font here is Area, which is 8, and then the font is 8. But our own model, our font is what? Our font is Calibri, and the font is 10. So please, it's always good when you copy from another cell, make sure you paste it as value, so that you maintain your own cell format and the whole thing, right? You get like some model from some people, and you open their cell styles and you will see lot of cell styles, right? It's because people are copying from another worksheet, pasting it into that model, and once you do that, the format is going to copy, the cell style will copy from that workbook, and you join it into your own. Then you see people model and they are seeing different fonts, different font size. That's not professional. So model is also to prepare it such a way that it's like a presentation, right? So which means you don't want to do a report and they're saying 3 or 4 different cell styles, different fonts, and you don't want to do that. Did you use concatenate formula for your hand? I did not use concatenate formula. This is what I did. The USD, we've created a name for it. I just add the and function, put my double quotes, and close the double quotes. All right. So, Obadari, I think maybe you're the only one that cannot see my screen, I guess. Could be network. All right. So I'll copy a percent here, copy a percent format, and I'll put that for my SG&A incremental rate. All right. I'll delete that. So I just need that percent input format, and I will drag that across the 60 months. So this kind of give them room to be able to do what? To increase any of the operating expenses any period, any month they want. Okay. So now let's put that under our monthly. I think we did something like that. Okay, yes. So I'll copy this, my forecast format. I'll just copy it and put it here. So that's the base value. Sorry, yep, that's the base value. I'll paste that format here and equal to, I will link it to that base input. Just link it like that. right? So that you don't need to recreate set. Once you use a format somewhere, you just go there. So set, we need this base. We said anything we put under this base, right? We do not expect the client to tamper with it. So it's either we need it as a constant value, or it's doing what is the same thing as the base, what they've inputs in the inputs column. So it said just copy the one we use under our quantity, copy that format. So paste it below here, paste it below across, then now link that to our each of the line item, right? The one we have in the column H. Leave it like, click to it like that. And the reason we are doing it is for us to be able to do what, maintain that left to right consistency. Okay, so now let's put our formula growth. So equal to my base here, my base period, multiply by open my bracket 1 plus, then I will highlight this my SG and the incremental growth. In fact, most times, so because it's an operational model, you know what we should do? In fact, let's create the growth for each of the line items separately, so that we kind of give room for that flexibility. You get? So just type equal to, just link it to each of the line item, so that each line item can has its own growth. So in case maybe they only want to increase, so then this one I use here, I'll just cut it and put it down here and just copy it now. You get? So that each line item also has its own growth. So in case maybe they only want to increase rent while other expenses remain the same thing, they can do that, or they want to increase the advertising and promotion while other line item remain what it is. So can go ahead and put my growth formula. So equal to my base period multiplied by my bracket 1 plus. Then just click on the input, even though there's nothing there, make sure you reference it, enter, and you can copy that down and copy it for the whole 60 months. Copy for the whole 60 months for you to be sure. So just, hey, sorry, Joshua, sorry, man. Please just try and take care of yourself. Health is wealth. All right, yeah. Thanks. I appreciate your the sacrifice and your willingness to join the session. Yeah, just try and rest. Okay. So make sure you test and be sure that everything is working well. If I come to any of the months, just type any percent, check, look at the line item, be sure that it is working. So you test everything and be sure that it is working just randomly like that. So maybe month 13, decide to increase any of the expenses. You just come in here, you do that, check that yes, it's properly working. All right. I hope we have the same thing. I hope you have the same thing. I hope you have the same thing. So in fact, most times what I usually do, right, I always make sure I leave a spare line for the management to, in case they want to add to the line item. For example, under this our selling general, I will just add maybe I'll call it other OPEX 1, other OPEX 2, right? And anything they want to put, even though currently it will be blank, but that gives them room to be able to add any additional line item they want. Hope we get that logic. Yep. So to just make room for the additional line item. Also include that in your SG&A incremental rate in case they want to add any line item to it. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, making sense? Making sense? Any question? Any question before we go to the salary and wages? All right. So now let's go back to our salaries and wages. Now, in this kind of scenario, where the management only provided their expected average monthly salary without giving us the details of number of staff, right? The average amount that they will be paying each of them on a monthly basis kind of make it very, very difficult. But remember that we are building an operational model. So most times, as I said, most operational models, you always have access to the management to ask them questions to really get those data from them directly, because this is meant to be more like an in-house model to help in decision making, right? Uh, there are cases where even the reason why you are building the model is for the management to also make decision as to, do we have the capacity, the cash to employ more staff, right? Are we overpaying some of the staff? Can we do without them? Is there a way we can try to manage our salary expenses, right? Do we need to outsource some of them? If we outsource, it forms part of our operational expenses. What's the benefit? Do we have control? So things like that forms part of the reason why you build typical operational model, which means that flexibility must be what must be built into the model. Okay, so and the same thing we're also going to do here. So let's call this head count, or should we call it head count or human resources? Which one? Which one should we call it? Is it human? Should we use human resources or head count? Yes, or head count. So anyone you prefer. So head count. So let's have the head count. Okay. So in this case, as I said, yeah. So because just only for our own learning purposes, most times we definitely have access to those people, to those personnel. So just call this. Let's call it staff one. Right. So it's just we making provision, and by the time they see it, they can always try to update accordingly. So let's just make provision for 10 staff. So I think I built one operational model. That should be this month. And you know what I had to do? Because they have a list of staff. So I was like, if I put the whole thing inside this input, it might be too much. So I had to create a separate worksheet for the staff alone, because they have different departments, right? Each department has the number of personnel they have there, right? They have different salaries based on levels and the whole thing. So at times you might need to do that. So what I had to do is I just created another worksheet in this. So let's say under this our input segment, and I call this staff. I just call it staff. And here you have the whole model. In fact, there are cases where you build the model and you also need to incorporate the taxes, the benefits, so everything. Maybe it's what the whole salary package, what they paid out in cash, what will be outstanding to meet the pension, to do this. So all those kind of things. At times you might need to build it into the model if they have the information, right? So staff salaries very, very important when you are building a model. But just this for the learning purposes only. Please remember. Okay. So here, let's have the head count. Let's have the head count. We just put hash here. which is like the head count. Let's put this at the head count. All right. Now we are going to put this as the base, the input as the base. And the other thing is, so because it's the staff, it's the salary, they might decide that, hey, this period we just hire this number of personnel, this period we hire this number of personnel, so something like that. As such, I feel it would be better for us to have it on a monthly basis like this, right? So I usually have that cell style in my model. So I'll say, yes, what you have in that cell currently is just a formula that is linking to something, but you can actually override what you have in the cell. So I think, so let's, you know what, let's just use the first month. So let's use the first month. So let's put all the years. Okay. So what we do is here. So let's assume. So just assumption, as I said, you're definitely going to have access. You need to ask more questions. So let's say each staff just puts like one staff across. So which gives us 10 staff, and then just link every other month to the previous month. So we link each month, so equal to this. Now, as I said, currently in input cells I, but we got them using formula, and they have the grace to be able to do what, to change that figure. For example, if they said, oh, you know what, in month 6, maybe other staff want to increase it to 5, it's easy for them to do what, to just do that update. Okay, so maybe we should even give this staff name some kind of title. For some people will start saying, why are we using staff 1 to 10? You get. Let's leave it like that. Let's leave it like that. And below, now let's our salary. So um so salary per staff. We have the same. So just to link that, that will also be our USD per month. That will be USD per month. Okay, so below it, let's call this salary incremental rates. Also give that room for them to be able to increase the staff salary. So I'll just copy this my percent format that I have below here, paste it there. For the monthly salary, let's put that. Let's put the input in our base, just like the same thing we did for our SG&A. So let me wait a little bit. I know I'm fast. All right. So make provision for the salary incremental rates. So kind of give them room to be able to increase their salary across board any of the period. So now the staff is saying average of 10,000 USD per month. So if we divide this by, I think, 10 staff, so that should be an average of $1,000. So just put 1,000 across, 1,000 across, then copy the base for the base period. That's in formatting, and we can increase each of the salary by that single incremental rate. So you need to log the row. need to log the row and copy that across. And even have like a total. So let's say total monthly salary. So can add, let's add the total. We're just doing like a summation below it. So at this, they can know that yes, monthly basis is the average salary we expect to pay out. Can you take the salary per staff again? Not sure what we have to take there. Put your salary per staff. Put the, just link this to the same staff headcount that you've typed up there. Put an input, 1,000 USD across, right? We say the same thing we did for our SG&A. Copy that format, paste it across there, link everything to your base, to your input, which represent the base period. Then your period one, your month one should be the base period. Multiply by, open your brackets, 1 plus this salary incremental growth factor that we said we apply across the salary payments, and press enter to drag it down and copy the formula from your year, from your month one down to month 60. That's the only thing we did. All right, I think that's straightforward. Okay. All right, so please, any question, we can always use the chat box. If you have any question, contribution, anything you also like to share with us, I said it's not a one-way thing. So you can type in the chat box. I have to mute everyone's mic because people come in and they forget to turn off their mic. Yeah, so that's row. So the row, which is this salary incremental growth factor, is applied across board. So if I put, so I just see, so that's, so the salary incremental rate, which is what we've typed here. And you can see here, can put this. Maybe is that, where did you use the headcount data? And so we're going to use that in our calculation. We are going to use that in our calculation. Yep. We're going to use that in our, we're still going to do a calculation. So this, everything we are doing here is still input, right? It's still input. So it's because it's operational model. You know, if it's all this normal typical kind of model that you are building, they will tell you that try as much as possible not to have calculation in your in your inputs, right? But because this operational kind of model, as they are changing the data in the input, they also want to see what the figures kind of look like easily. We are still going to do the calculation, yes, and that's when we are going to use. So you can see we've not calculated our revenue, we've not calculated our cost of sales. Everything we've done is just for us to be able to get to the final thing that we need. In fact, if I come under my pricing, right? Okay, yeah. So this is the product pricing. So which means we are going to use this. We're going to use this section by the time we need to get our pricing under my cost of sales. We're going to use this segment, this data. This is what we need. In fact, our quantity, despite doing all these calculations, stress here and there, this is what we actually need. Yeah. So as I said, it's because it's operational model. If it's a normal typical model, all this seasonality and everything that we've done inside is our inputs would have been done inside your calculations. But because it's operational model, they don't need to change 5,000 here and still need to go to another worksheet and now be saying what is the effect of the value that I change here. Right. So just want them to be able to see on each of the on the worksheet, right? And they can go to the any period and see what that kind of look like. We're still going to do the proper calculations. Okay, so the head count, just put the head count here, and they have their monthly salary. In fact, should we put the total? Which is we should not put the total so that this will not convince them. Yes, 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 yes. Because if someone decides to change this staff number to change this to 2, right? Then definitely this is no longer 10,000. So I think we should remove the total. Let's remove the total. Let's remove that total monthly salary. Yep. So that we does not cause confusion. So it's better to have it like this. Average staff per head counts, and we'll do the proper salary calculation in our calculation workbook. All right. So it seems we are done with this our operation segment. As I said, operational model is not expected to be operated by non-finance person or someone that does not understand concept of modeling. Yes, so don't worry about it. That be kind of look complex. Average person might not be able to use it. It's not meant for average person. If the version we built for average person, there's the approach is different and most times it's always static. Yeah, do few flexibility, but not as compared to this. So this is not expected to be used by anyone who does not know anything about finance or does not even understand what the business is doing. Okay. All right. All right. And most times, so typically in advanced country where they really value what we call short-term funding, right, and networking capital. This is very, very important especially when it comes to transaction-based kind of engagement, right? Networking capital is very, very crucial. I've built some models which the main output they want is, as I said, which is the same thing we're also doing here. We are going to create our cash flow and kind of see the headroom. So if they can afford to take this loan, will the business be able to mm, have that capability to repay within that certain period? So just those different kind of thing, and because it's a stable market, right, it's very easy. You can't just say revenue will grow by 20%, which will in turn affect your cash flow, and you are just saying, and the next question would be, how is that possible? It's kind of a stable market, right? Even inflation increase is not as compared to uh, emerging markets. Just put your cost on USD per month again. No. Anybody in this session that cannot create something like this, guys, no. As I said, we are not doing Excel training. All right, so now we've created we've created under our operation. We've done our revenue and cost of sales. We've also done our operating expenses, in which we have salaries and wages. Yes, yes, as I said, not only Nigeria, so any market that is an emerging market, you definitely expect they can tell you that revenue will grow by 20%, even though in the previous year they've been growing at one kind of rate. Yes, it's possible. And it could be inflationary effect, just so different thing. But in a typical advanced mature markets, mature country, it does not operate like that. So when you kind of say a financial forecast in a developed countries, you hardly see unrealistic growth, right? Especially if the business has been in operation for a while. Definitely, you know that if I'm selling this, you are selling. Can't just say it will just increase from nowhere. All right. So which the story must also be seen in your net in your networking capital. So under operation, I'll copy this my operating expenses header, just additional row, and let's call this 3 point. So this should be 3.3, and this will be my networking capital. Networking capital. So now networking capital is very, very vital, right? And I can tell you that most businesses they've failed because they've not been able to give attention to networking capital. See, as much as cash is very important, networking capital, in fact, if you're a valuation analyst, and please, when I'm talking about valuation analyst, I'm talking about people that do valuation real time, right? Everybody can do DCF and put the whole data where it's supposed to be. That's the structure which has been created. The valuation is more than that. So networking capital, all right. I've seen different cases, right, where networking capital. So a business was worth, let's assume a business was worth almost 500 million last year. And by the time we look at well, the actual performance between last period to this period, look at what their monthly performance within that 12 months and where they are now, you can see the business revenue actually increased. But because of the networking capital management and the transaction that played out, it dropped the business from a 500 million, which you expect. I know this business is supposed to even increase because revenue increase, every profit even increase. But you know what? It was the other way around from 500 down to 350 million. And you'll be like, what happened? And the whole story was around networking capital. Networking capital is becoming negative, is increasing month on month. You are selling, you are not collecting as the time you need it. So it's networking capital alone. As I said, if you're a sound valuation, people that kind of do valuation, the real valuation, they don't joke with networking capital. In fact, due diligence guys, they don't joke with networking capital. As much as revenue is important, as much as profitability is important, net working capital is very important. And as a modeler, please, if you don't understand the net working capital in business wise, right, you can take your time, go online, check the basic explanation, right? What translates to what and this and that. So let's start. So we're going to use our receivables. We're going to have our receivables. Receivables. So okay, I hope my spelling is correct. Let me check with Excel. Let me see. Okay, you can check spelling in Excel too. So receivable days. So let's have our receivable days. Let's have our receivable days. Put this in this and can put this as our input. Now for the receivable days, basically what we are saying is if the business sell to, because considering their manufacturer, so which means most times they might not be selling directly to last consumer, right? So maybe they sell directly to the retailer or to the middle man guys, and everyone is trying to manage their business cash. Everyone is trying to manage cash. How do you check? How do you check spelling in Excel? So I like the text like this. Press F7 on your keyboard. If you have FN, you might need to press FN. For example, I wanted to type, so receivables, maybe it should be RECEI. So I type IE like this, enter. So if I highlight the receivable and I press on my F7, so it's going to show me the different spelling, the correct one. So I just click on change. And it's going to change. It's going to change that for me to the correct one. Okay. So basically saying when we sell to them, I said is a manufacturing. So you might not expect them to be selling to the end user, end customer. Okay, so which means distributor sell to the retailer, and as such, those guys are trying to manage their cash. So they will tell them, you know what, give us this product, we'll pay you in so number of days. So for this kind of business, what is the average receivable days you think we should give them? Guys, make your suggestion. Now, things like this, most time clients don't usually give you. All right. So maybe when you are doing the business, the model presentation, you can now just do that short explanation for them. They can tell you, oh, okay, you know what? I think 30 days should be fine, 50 days ahead. So you can also use that. Then there are also industry average that we also consider at times. 45 days, no, I don't think so. For in an advanced country, I don't think it should be up to that. 45 days for you to collect your cash. That's much. Well, it could happen, right? It could happen. It could happen. Don't worry. I leave you to do the remaining one. Now, as I said, because this is, do we look? Do we have to look through contract and some buffer? But is your call, right? Is your call. But one, you don't want to waste much time with that. Just if they have, if they don't have, and most times, say it, worst case, anyone you sell to, they should be able to get your money within 30 days, and you move on. Don't spend, don't give yourself unnecessary headache. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this constant across across the month. Right now, as I said, working capital, we kind of give lots of attention to this when you are building your model. And now there could be some uncertainty that might occur. Okay, or even they even make provision for if scenario. So what we going to do is let's add let's call this unexpected. So let's call it unexpected delay days. Right, it's also days, and with that we can have our total receivable days. Okay, so for this unexpected delay days, that would definitely, so put everything as input for the 060 month. Right now, anything can happen. Maybe, oh, there will be public holiday in this period, and as such, definitely that public days might affect the business. The business might also consider that, you know what, should we count weekend as part of the business days, or we should not count it as part of? So just those different things that might happen. So just sum your receivable days plus that provision you've made for unexpected days. Okay, I can copy that across for the 60 month. I said it's all about that flexibility, think through. And now, so maybe in February, tell that, oh, February, because February is not up to 30 months, so maybe we should even, they want to remove, they can remove 5 days from it. So there's an option for you to, you can also decide to deduct from the days. They can decide to add to the days. So you just that unexpected delay days. Okay. So most time what we usually do is, if for a company that has historical financials and you're trying to build this kind of operational model for them, you look at what the historical, what it has been. If there are particular period where, so if you look at the average, right, average might offset some period. So what you do is you look at the average, then you check the trend and look at this period. There was significant high, you had more receivable days. Here this period you have low receivable, so that's just kind of make, allow you to make that provision for those kind of days if something that's been occurring for some period. I hope that makes sense. Anyone want to share their own thought with us on it, you can just click on your answer and I will allow you to open your mic, because it's very, very important. They have your receivable days. I said they have historical data. You can use that average of the trend. Then look at period where there's some things that's off. And your banjo, please. If it's something you can type in the chat, we appreciate that. We really don't have much time. We really want us to even finish this input today. Okay, please try to keep it short. Yeah, okay. Yeah, please. If it's something you can type in the chat box. Not question, contribution. Contribution, share experience with us. You can also type it to the chat box. Okay, so receivables. Now let's also copy it and let's do the same thing for inventory. I think inventory should even come first. So maybe let's change the first one to inventory. So inventory, and I'll change this my inventory. I just change it to inventory days, then total inventory days, then receivables. So copy, just paste it down. For the inventory, so inventory include them getting the raw material from the supplier, okay, then taking that into the store, into their factory to process, and now being able to get the product out of the store. That's what we actually call the inventory days. So the period it takes you to do what, to be able to get your raw material from your supplier, do the processing, right? Get it ready in your store, and then going out of your store to the distributor. So I'm not sure how long this will take, but let's just put it as 20 days for the inventory days. It could be more than that, as I said. You definitely need to work on your assumptions so and be able to defend it. So that you might want to do, because like look for public publicly available business that same industry, that play in that same industry, and use them as more like a base. Okay, so inventory, receivables, then let's have our payables here. Let's have this as trade payables. So you can add additional line item as you want, but I think let's restrict it to inventory days, receivable days for our assets. If you want to add prepayment, you can also add that, right? So this becomes our trade payables. Trade payables. Now for the trade payables is basically saying we got this inventory from the supplier, right? We've used it when we told the supplier that, you know what, because you're also trying to manage our cash, give us this your product, and when is this period we are going to pay you. So the same way our receivables worked on, we sold to our customer, they are telling us that they're going to pay us certain period. That's the same way the payable is, because you know what, your own income is someone else's expense, someone else's expense is your own income. Okay. Okay. All right. So for the trade payables, so most times, because of the good cash management, we always expect your trade payables to always be greater, either greater or equal to your inventory days plus your receivable days. So basically saying you've gotten the inventory from the suppliers, we've used that in processing, so sold it out to our own clients. We got the cash, and that's the first cash that is coming to the business. So which means we now need to settle the suppliers. But most times, suppliers might tell you that no, I cannot give you up to these certain days. So it's also more like an industry thing, especially where you have access to suppliers and also based on competitor. So, but for this one, so our inventory plus receivables is actually 35 days. So let's just assume they will be equal to each other. So 35 days to the day they collect the money from their own client, they should be able to settle their own. They should be able to settle their own suppliers, right? Yeah, I know most times suppliers then try to add some discount or premium into it, and just so many story around that. So for the payables, so we have our inventory is able. So let's call this other payables. Let's just call this other payables, right? Other payables, or should we, or let's even call it Accra. So let's call it Accra and other liabilities that they need to settle. Accra and other liabilities that they need to settle to give us our total. Total Accra and other liabilities. Okay. So which means with this, they also have option to be able to do what? To adjust any of the days in any of the period. So you can add, if you want to add some additional line item, you can add that. But for this, our own trading, let's just limit it to inventory, receivable days, trade payables, and Accra. Now, I know someone might be like, why are we not adding prepayment? Right? Yeah, for an emerging market, in our own local space, yes, there are cases where you have to prepay your expenses like that. But most times in advanced country, you can't just pay as it's for due. And most, I think, most expenses are on monthly basis and not like annual basis in some other countries. Okay, so I think we are good with this. I think we are good with this. We are good. We are good with this. We are good with this. All right. Is it making sense? Is it making sense? Is it making sense? So we have our net working capital, we have our operating expenses, we have our revenue, and our cost of sales under our operation. Okay. So now, most times it can be, you might want to navigate directly to a particular worksheet, and scrolling up and scrolling down might be difficult. And that's where you can also make use of your group outline. I hope you know how to use group outline. Please, how many of us know how to use group outline? So just give a thumb up if you know how to use group outline. You know how to use group outline. Group outline. Do I have any sample file I can show us that has something like that? Okay, let me see. If you know how to use group outline, just give a thumb up. Okay, so maybe we can do that after maybe close of the session. Don't let's waste time doing that now. Yep. Okay. Now, once we are done with that, then the next thing is, now as I said, there's really no rule saying you must do one before you do two or before you do three. Just make sure you put the assumption, structure it in the best way. Yeah, I know in fact, I've not that I've seen, I've also done it before where I had to separate my input so that revenue and cost inputs assumptions, they are in one sheet. I create another, I'll create another one. So that's why it's under that section, that segmentation. Then I have one that will just be on funding assumptions only. Then the one for capex assumptions only. So you can also decide to use that if you feel that will be best for you. But most time we usually prefer to use that group outline. So the next one, let's now have our capex. We know we're going to generate our revenue. So I'll just copy these two header. This is my operation. I just header one and header two. I'll copy it, then come down here and let's talk about our funding. Should we talk about our funding or we should talk about our capex? So let's talk about let's call this capex. So let's call it capex and funding. Or is it funding or capex? Anyone? Okay, let's call it funding and capex. Funding and capex. I can decide to even separate them. So I think this should be 4. Yes. Okay, so 4.1, and this will now be our funding. Let's see. Do we have anything from the clients regarding funding? Okay, they only gave us the capex and no further information on the funding. Okay, interesting. So I think the use of fund will definitely drive the funding. So copy this, go to paste this here. Now this will be our what? Our capex. So this will be the capex, slash use of funds. So let's create this section 4. Right, so for the funding, should we do the funding? Okay, you know what? Yes, let's do the funding. Yes, let's do the funding. Let's do the funding. I'll call this our sources of funding. Sources of funding. So let's have our sources of funding. So let's have equity. So equity. Then we have our debt. So currency and currency. So we can have equity, we can have debt, we can also have any other source of funding, right, as applicable. So for this one, I think we should just stick to this, then this total funding required. Now put everything as inputs across the 60 months. Across the 60 months. Then our total funding required, we can sum that together. Right? I know, yes, we have options where there's more like a split. Maybe they will say 10% we go to the equity, the so percent. Yes, if that's the approach you're also using, you can also do that. Okay, but never say never. Maybe we're still going to change this. Now let's bring in our use of funds. Okay, we're not yet done with this. We're not yet done with our funding. So below it, let's now have our cost of fund. So sources of fund, let's have our cost of funding. Our cost of funding. So for the equity, under equity. So let's have our dividend payout ratio. Let's have our dividend payout ratio, put it as percent, and then they can always impute this. Right, but maybe let's use this like a single input for that. Or maybe 40%. 40%. So if there are any other terms around covenant terms and the whole thing, which also flow into the cash flow, I also discuss that. So just type equal to link this 40% to the base period. Okay, you know how we used to format our anything we are linking to the base. So format it like this. even though we still give them room to be able to change any of the applicable dividend payouts in either of the period, but make sure you link it to that base. Just link it to the base so that whenever they change it for any month, it just kind of continue to other months like that. That'd be a good one. Because you know what? Let's just make all the dividends. Let's make it all input. Yeah, let's make it all input. Let's make it all input. Just that 40% across. And just give them room. They are saying, oh, you know what? The first year there's nothing like dividends. They just go there and delete the percent. So just to keep it straight like that. And there are also cases where you need to so you use more like a flag, timing flag. And you're saying, hey, dividends we only start to pay dividends in so year, in particular period onward, and all those kind of related things. Okay, so now for the debt. So for the debt, now for the debt is also now your core, because at times the business might want to get more than one or two debts. Right. What I usually do when I build this kind of model, I make sure that, and I will state that, hey, you know what, the business has a capacity to have built in a debt schedule. So which means the business can take up to 3 debts within over the next 60-month forecast. So you can decide to also use that approach. So which means you are going to build schedule for 3 different debts. So debt 1, debt 2, debt 3, and they come in their different period with different loan terms and things like that. So you can decide to do that. But for this our own, so just trying to manage time, let's stick with one. Now we're saying, hey, the business can only take one debt over the next 5 years. As I said, proper approach is you always build like at least 3. So there are times where the business kind of gets debt that will fund the capex. Now there's now another debt that is just based on working capital that they need to manage the business operation and like that. You can just use the same approach and repeat it for the second one. Right. Okay, so let's do one so that we can save time. So let's call this loan period. Loan period. Loan period. The loan period will be year. Right, so let's assume the loan period will be over, let's say 4 years, so that we can see when it's actually being fully repaid. Right, so then loan period, so this will now be in months. So you combine this because your model is monthly. Okay, we should do that in the, yeah, let's convert. So this to months, and that will be equal to this year multiplied by what? Months a year. So that gives us the actual debt month. Right, so because they have a setup period, definitely there are going to be something we call a grace period or moratorium period. So let's put that in months. So maybe, as I said, most time I always make sure this is equal to, the grace period is equal to that setup period. So the period the need to use in setting up and the delay, so equal to my setup period plus my what? Plus my delay period. So that will give us the 7. I think this should not be in input. So most times it's always good. So because of depth thing, that's where we can always format this so that the 4 is showing here at the back, so that they don't miss. They can neglect the description, and the thinking is another thing. So just format it so that it's kind of appear like this. Right. Also format this. Right, appear as a month. So it's always good you do this, especially for depth. So you format it like this, and it's easy for them to see what they say. All right, and this become our repayment period. So our repayment month will then be my loan period minus what? Minus my grace period. So let me do that again. So loan period, so I put that as 4 years. Format it so that the year is shown at the back. That's Excel thing. Then the loan period, just multiply the 4 years multiplied by the month. That will give by month a year, which is the year multiplied by 12 to give us 48 months. So we said grace period because the business will not be has not started generating revenue in that period. So which means the debt should be what? It should be equal to your construction period. So just add your construction period plus the delay period, the one you have up here. Right. Or you know what? Let's put it as input because I know some people are getting confused already. Where did you? So let's make the grace period. See. So let's make the grace period. Let's make it 8 months. Yes. So 8 months. So which means the business is not going to pay anything in the first 8 months, but we'll do what? We'll be accruing the interest expense. So that's the concept we use mostly in project finance. We have our repayment period. So the repayment period is just your loan period in months minus the grace period. So yes, that's you're not paying anything, but the interest would be accrued. So we assume you are paying it, but you are not paying it in cash, so it becomes a liability and you need to pay it by the time you start generating your revenue. It needs to be added to your initial loan debt. 8 months is an input. 8 months is an input. Put your input. As I said, you are setting up, so you are starting the business. It's taking you 6 months, more like 7 months for you to set it up, right? And you've taken a loan to set this up. So what does that mean? Because one is within these first 7 months, the business is not generating any revenue. It's not doing anything. There's no cash that is coming in. But the bank has given us the cash from day one. So what will now happen is we need to negotiate with them and tell them, hey, you know what? Because there's nothing coming in into this business, there's no cash flow within this particular period, and it's because we are setting up our plans, we are bringing this and that. So you know what? Give us this particular. So it's based on now the agreement with the financials. They're not telling them, okay, you know what? Give us this particular grace period, or they call it moratorium period. And they said, you know that those period, don't pay anything on the debt, right? But you know, because I've given you money. If I've not given you that money, I could have decided to use it and do something, or even giving the loan to someone else that will be paying immediately. But the fact that I'm giving you, right? Don't pay any principal, but interest. Don't pay the interest during that period, but you must calculate the interest as if you are paying it. So which becomes an outstanding liability, outstanding interest. Now, by the time you now want to start repaying, after that 8 months where you need to now start paying back your debt, both the principal and the interest, that interest that you ought to pay in 8 months that you did not pay will now be added back to the initial loan that you've taken, and that will now become your new debt amount. So which means uh, the financial is also now uh, getting that almost the same benefit as if you are paying back. In fact, most times it's always it's more higher on the other side, but we are not diving deep into that. Okay, I hope that is clear. In the case where we have another loan coming in, do we consider creating another zone? Yes. So most times what I usually do is, so this under this debt, right? You just need to state it that, hey, the model can only incorporate 2 or 3 debts. So you have debt 1, you just have like 3 or 4 other debts. Okay, or even so if we are using a percent, we then say, you know what, equity will be 40% and debt will be 60%. will be 60%. Okay, so which is more like a typical project finance and how this kind of work. Now, this, let's assume you need 100 million. So if the project cost is 100 million, okay, if the project cost is 100 million, so which means the equity is going to fund 40 million. And then we need debt to be able to do what? To fund the remaining 60 million. Now, this 60 million might now be funded by different debt financials. So maybe debt financial 1, financial 2, and financial 3, right? So maybe financial 1 is saying, hey, you know what, I can fund 30 million. This guy is saying, you know what, I can only give you 20 million. And this guy is saying, hey, I can give you 10 million. So which means this 60 million will now be what? Be distributed across these 3 guys. Now, this debt 1 guy will tell you, I will give you, the cash can be available for you within this period to this period. So which means he's going to have his own loan period, inflow, repayment. If he's also giving you the grace period, have his own assumptions. Debt 2 guys, so maybe so this is when you'll be able to draw down on the cash. Then he's going to also have his own different terms, his own repayment. If he's giving you the grace period, flow. The third debt guide also comes in like that. So you just need to build them separately. Yeah, I hope that's clear. So don't worry, as I said, if you can build out typical operational model like this, you understand the whole thing. Project finance should not be difficult for you to understand and flow with, right? So the grace period, and that's what the grace period is saying. We are giving you the debt, right? But because the business has not commenced, you've not even started operation, talk less of generating revenue. Okay, we give you this period. Do not pay anything. Now, the financial will now consider that same amount, if he has given it to someone else that is ready to start paying immediately, they'll be generating their interest income and the whole thing. So they'll now tell you that, okay, you know what? Yes, we said you should not pay anything, but calculate the interest on the debt as if you're actually paying it. Now, in month 1, we calculated the interest that we're supposed to pay, but we did not pay it. You know what will happen in month 2? That interest that we ought to pay in month 1 that we did not pay. So let's assume we took a loan of in, let's say, in the first base period, right? 100 million. Okay. Now we calculated our interest expense at the end of this period to be, let's say, 1.1 million. You know what will happen in the next month? So which means in the next month, how much do you think our next debt will be? So let me call. So this is the principal. So this is the principal. This is the principal, and this is the interest. So which means in the following month, our principal repayment will then be what? Well, okay, so let's say this is okay. So let me just put this as one random. Then our new loan. Let me call this loan. So loan. Let's call this loan or debt. So you took a debt of 100 million in base 1, right? So in month 1, we calculated our interest expense to be what? 1.1, right? So which means in month 2, our debt balance will no longer be 100 million, right? It will now become what? 101 million. You get that? Because because if you are not doing this, the financial is saying, I could have decided to give someone this 100 million and I will collect this same 1 million, right? But if you are not going to pay it, you calculate the interest and you add it. So which means by the time you want to calculate, so I think this should be like 1% of I think this should be like 1% of whatsoever the interest expenses. Now in the month 2, you are now going to calculate the interest not on the initial 100 million again. It will now be on the what? The 101, which is the new debt. So let's assume you now calculate maybe another one, or maybe 1.1 million or something. So which means by the time, so 1.1 million. So which means by the time you get to month 3, your debt will no longer be what? 101. It becomes what? 102. I think that will be 102.1 again. It is on this 102 that you now calculate another interest. So by the time, let's say the grace period is 3 months. So which means by the time you now want to start repayment in month 4, right? Your total debt amount will now be what? That's current amount and not the initial 100 million. So that's how it works in project finance. Now, because in project finance, you kind of look at which one is best for you. So that those interests, it basically means we are capitalizing it. We call it accrued expense. But now there are cases where because that just leads to you paying higher amounts, then your principal increase, interest that you need to start paying also increase. So some people will say, okay, you know what? Give us the grace period. We are not going to pay anything on which will be the grace will be on the principal. But your interest expense, maybe the equity guys will fund it and be paying it as it's for you. So there are different terms around it. Right. Okay. So someone said, okay, I thought moratorium only applies to principal portion of the. No, 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 no. So if it's applied, then the financials are not getting anything. But most times, always depend on the agreement and draft memorandum. If they're saying moratorium will be only on, but there's no way to only be on principal. It will not be on that one. Okay. Yeah. So interest on interest, yes, because that's the cost. And because they are giving you the grace. So they also want to be on the safer side. So there's a difference between principal and loan amount. So please, guys, I always want you to get that. Yeah, this is not project finance class, but it's always good. So you have debt. So there's something. So there's debt outstanding. There's debt outstanding, right? There's principal. There's principal and there's interest. So for debt, so let's say debt outstanding. Assuming you are giving me 100 million today, right? And you say I should pay over 3 years. The principal basically is saying this guy divided by 3 years. So give or take 3 years. So by the time you look at the total, but if I sum both of them together, you should give me this same thing. That's what they call principal. So any debts, you can take your time, go back to any debt schedule, any type of debt you've seen. Even yes, the figures might not be constant, and it's because of the interests of a thing. Don't worry about that. But by the time you sum the principal must always be equal to the what? To the outstanding. So let's assume this. So that's one, right? Okay, you get that. And I'm saying, hey, because it's as good as say, give me 100 million, and I'll pay you back in the next 3 months. Simple as that. It's basically saying, let's assume you're not charging me any interest. You are saying, pay me back in this amount, this same equal amount over the next 3 years, and that's all. But because the fact that I'm giving you the money today, which I could have used to do something else, means you need to promise me something in return. So let's say our return is 10, so our interest is 10%. So 10% is the same thing as actually a return. So which means I'm saying equal to this my 10 million, my base first period multiplied by what? Multiplied by my 10%. I have this. So in the second period, then it becomes my 100 million minus my what? Minus my 33. So it becomes then multiply. So this minus, but we are still going to do the debt thing. So don't let's scatter our head. I'm going to build the debt schedule together. I can also check my YouTube. I think I have some debt schedule uh series I did, yes, for project finance. You can see how that also work. All right. Then let's have our, so we are going to have our interest. So let's have our interest expense. So interest expense. Okay. So I'm not sure what the business interests on debt in the typical US market, right? Interest rates on business loan. So okay, the kind of range. But for this one, let's just use 7.7%. 7.7%. So this percent per annum. So remember, percent per year. You can find a way to convert it back to. I think this isn't too low, but okay. You know what? Let's go with, let's put it as 10%, which is very, very high. Right. Okay, let's use 8%. 8% is fine. Let's work with 8%. Let's work with 8%. So most times the client might not even know what the interest is. So you need to be able to build the model in a flexible way so that it's just for them to change the percent and you are good. Okay. Right. So for the capex, now for the capex, let's just go straight to our IRL and I'll just copy everything the client has given us already. Copy the line item, copy it, come to my model, paste it here. Okay. So put the currency. Put our currency. Put our currency. Now for the capex, just the entire 60 months. So which means we are giving them room to, as they are putting the funding, right? This will so automatically flow in. So put all these ones as input. Put everything as input. Then copy the value, copy the amount, copy, and let's paste that in our first month. Let's paste that in our first month, paste as value. So I do my total use of funds. So go to the IRL, just copy the amount, copy the use of fund line item, put it here. They've given us all the value. You can do your summation of all the line items so that we know the total funding needed. It's our total use of funds. All right. So now, we have two approaches that we use when it comes to this. Now, first one is where we have the option to be able to state the total amount that we need, right? And the total amount, we then distribute it across for the use of funds. That's our typical modeling concept. Now, but for kind of project finance, okay, first thing is we need to state what we actually want to do and know how much it's going to cost us. Right? So it's not like, the normal typical startup business. They say, you know what, we just want to raise $5 million and then they now start listing what they want to use it for. A kind of operational model and project finance infused seems a little bit different. So which means you need to first state what you need to use the funds for. And that will also now depend on how you need the funds, because definitely if your construction period will take you a year, definitely they are not going to give you the whole money in month one, and you can now start using it to do something else. No, it is based on how you need it. That is how they are going to give you that cash. That's how you are going to also do what, access the cash, and it's also limit that interest being accrued and just increasing unnecessarily. Now let's now take a look at it. In our typical accounting, they will say if a business is starting today, any expenses you've incurred, you assume as it was incurred in the first day of business operations, and they can't capitalize that and move on. But for this, we really want to say we really want to see what the pattern of our cash would be. So now let's now look at it. So which means not all these expenses will not be incurred in month one. If we are saying, our construction period setting up will be over 6 months, that means we need to be able to state, because if you are telling them, hey, we need 2.6, let's say approximately 2.7 million, then the next question is, how do you want to use it? They won't give us this whole 2.7 at once. So now let's take a look at how to also profile this. We call it capex profiling. Now, business registration, if you want to register a business, I think that should be the first thing they should do. For the land, I'm not sure, maybe this land is actually like a rent of a thing. So let's leave that because the amount is small. Factory build. Now, definitely, it's not as if they are going to build the whole factory in month one. So we said take us 6 months to settle that. So which means this 150, we need to be able to spread it across that setup period. Right? So if they're saying the whole thing will cost us 150, so let's say we are spending 50 this period, right? 50, then maybe just want to, how can we profile it? 150, right? So let's say 25, 1, 2, 3, 25, 25, someone should be, so let's sum it up, 100, then maybe this 40, and then 10. I hope it's up to 150. Yes. So which means it's not as if the whole 150 would be spent in month one. Right? It's as good as you saying, I want to build house. And they've given you all the code that, you know what, this house, it will cost you 50 million to build everything. It does not mean in the day one where they start digging the ground, that's when you give them the whole 50 million. You might not even have that whole 50 million in your account that period. But you do this first phase, you pay. You do the next phase, you pay. And that's the same way business also operates. So most times it's not as if the whole cash you take the whole cash out at once. So which means by the time you want to request from debt, this month one, the person that want to finance this will tell you, okay, you can draw down this. The following month, you can now draw down this. So that's the same way it operates. So land, 100%, production machinery. Let's also see how we can split that. So 1.2, right? So we're looking at 1.2. Let's see how we can split that. So maybe first month, or maybe first month, maybe there's nothing. Maybe there's nothing, right? The following one, so 500. Maybe nothing in the third month. Then the fourth month, another 500, right? 1.5. Then the last month, another 500. So this is what we call capex profiling, and it is based on how you've lay out the capex profile. That's how they will also be able to have access to the funding. Okay. Now, production control software, I think that should come in after. So let's put that in our month 5. It's not 1.5, it's 1.2. Oh, okay. Thank you for that. So 1. So maybe this should be 200, right? Thanks for the observation. Yep. So 1.2. So it's always good you check that. Yep. Thanks for that. So quality laboratory equipment, I think all those ones should be coming in at when you already set up your plant. Now storage. So maybe month 4 that should start coming in. So maybe we're saying 150. and then the last month maybe 200. So you can see, so that it's not, so they won't give you the money when you don't need it. They might not even have that money in bulk like that. So why aren't we using a flag or ratio to split the capex profile? So yes, if you want to use percent and all those things, definitely you can do that. But we are imputing. You impute how you want to spend it. So the other way around is you have the total, just the way the client has given us there. We now create the spend profile. So maybe with this period, 5% of the total capex will be spent, 10% of the total capex will be spent, and 20% of the total budgeted capex will be spent. So you can also use the percent as well, which also results in this. So power supply and supply system. So that's 150. So let's say if I divide it by over 4. Okay, so then let's do that. So 37. So let's say 37,500. I'll spread that across. I hope it's 150. Okay, yes. So supply chain network, definitely that should come in. So maybe put that in month 4. Miscellaneous. So maybe you can split this over 5 months. So 5,000 USD over 5 months. Okay, that's 25. So maybe nothing in month 1. Okay. So raw material, definitely you know that you'll be getting your raw material at the, so they might want to pay earlier, but let's put that in month 5, right? Operating expenses also now is coming in year 5. So let me give you time to look through. So this is what we call capex profiling, right? So it's not as if you need everything in month 1 and bah. Yes, though there are cases where the funder can, where the financials kind of give you the money upfront. We kind of call it upfront funding. But most time I said, because we are infusing both project finance into operational kind of model, and it's all about cash management. Okay. So they always based on what you want to do in this particular month. Okay, this is the money. You can draw down, you can draw down. So in project finance, they will approve the whole money for you. Now they will now be like what we call a reserve account. So it is based on, hey, this period, I need this total amount of money. You can go and draw down from that account. So it's not as if they will give you the whole money and then you go and keep it somewhere and be using it for another another thing. Will be generating interest income when you put it in your own account. So you don't have access to do that. Okay. Yeah, so I've deleted it. Thanks for that. Okay. So now it is based on this. This will now be what we do, what we drive our source of funding. This will be what we do, what we drive our source of. So let's do the total. So just do the total by the sign in our total column. So everything from month 1 down to month 60. So just do the summation. So it's always good you have this summation here and be sure that it's kind of aligned with what's been provided. 2695. So it's also the same thing. So just do the total. Do the total by the side in our, I think that's column G. Just do the summation across. Okay. So we have less than 15 minutes. We have less than 15 minutes. So let's just try and do the funding. So for this equity, I think maybe we should just introduce our percent. So copy, put this. So let's assume equity we fund 40%. And then for the debt, that will be equal to 1 minus this 40%. So go to your source of funding and let's incorporate that. So 40% and 60%. So which means we come to month 1. Yes, though is in input, but we also give them that room to be able to do what? Change the value if they want, right? At times it could be like this already agreed amount. or maybe you create the percent for each of the months and now do the multiplication. So equal to my 40%, keep the column constant, multiply by what? Multiply by my total funding in that particular month. Keep the row constant. Enter. So you should, so by the time you see the total funding required, it should be also the same thing with what? The total use of fund in that period. You can copy that across. So what this is also giving us a room for them to be able to do what? To change those values. So if I sum the entire row, you see we should be getting the same total amount with our use of funds. Our total use of funds. Yes, I know I was a little bit fast there. Sorry, guys. Just trying to want to stop once it's 3 o'clock. Anyway, we stop today. But I think we are done with our inputs. Put your capex, equity, so type 40%, then do your formula, which will be for the debt, which means 1 minus the equity percent input. So that just automatically updates. And then come here to your month one, just multiply that 40%, multiply by what? The total use of fund amount. Now, what we've done is we're also giving them, yes, also in input, so which means they have the right to, in case there's an agreed specific amount, you can just go there and input the amount while everything is working fine. Okay. We good. So the last but not the least, which is what we call maintainable. Let's call it maintainable or incremental capex. Maintainable or incremental capex. And what I'm going to do is I'll just link this to the line item we are going to capitalize. So land, factory, building and cement, production control, quantity lab, storage, fuel, power supply, supply chain. So this line item, we're going to do what? We are going to create more like a maintainable or incremental capex. Just going to make them input. So that by the time they start the business operations, right? In case they have, it's always like the typical practice of a business. So it does not mean after this month 5, right? The business will not incur any capex over the next 5 years. It really does not operate like that. So we need to factor this, and maybe even then we need asset lifespan. So maintainable capex, USD, just leave it as the input. You can always decide to put any maintainable amount. You can put that in the applied row. All right. We're good. Then we also need the asset lifespan. So maybe here we can just put the assets lifespan. Now, should we put it there? Okay, you know what? Let's put it below. Let's put it below. Now, there are cases where the assets might have different lifespan. For a typical operational model, you might need to do that. You might need to separate. That means you need to create different assets profile, asset schedule for each of them if they have different lifespan. Okay, but let's say let's call this our depreciation. Let's call this our depreciation, and for this we are going to call this tangible. So we're going to call this our tangible assets, and then intangible assets. So we're just going to use this. So as I said, if they have different lifespan, definitely you need to incorporate that. So for a typical factory assets. What do we think the lifespan is? I think accountant will tell us 5 years. Am I correct? Am I correct? So 5 to 10 years. So let's just put it as 10 years, and then the intangible, let's put that as 5 years. So for the monthly equity to debt, so I said put 60%, which is an input, and then your debt will be 1 minus this our equity. All right, then you can now go ahead, just multiply this, your equity, multiply it by the total use of funds. You also do the same thing for your debt. So the debt percent multiplied by, so you keep the column of that your debt input and do that. So here, this is what we are going to get. And I guess for our debt, so let's finish the depreciation. Now for the depreciation, when it comes to operational model, because it's kind of very dynamic and interesting, we have different different approaches that we actually use. There are cases where you build out the model, you build out the model lifespan, right, such that once the asset is fully depreciated, another capex just automatically come in. So there's more like an automated way where you can do that. So you're saying the assets will be over 2 years. After 2 years, the asset will automatically bring in a new capex, which means you are going to the same amount you spent when you first bought it, the same thing. But in normal business, I think it does not usually work like that. So if you have an asset, right, that you are using in production every day, it does not mean because one accountant told you that it will use 5 years, after the 5 years you just throw the assets away. It really does not work like that in real business. Yes, I know there are some businesses that kind of practice that say, hey, fully depreciated, they just get it out of the business. But for something this kind of assets, I'm not sure it's as good as saying you bought a million vehicle, right? Is in good shape. You keep spending maintenance expenses on it monthly basis. And then after 2 years, because one guy said it's fully depreciated, you're not going to throw that car away. That's what you are using, and it's still in its best shape. So that's why maintainable capex is very, very important. So I guess we are going to use this as depreciation rate, so which is what we are going to use to put it as percent, and that will be equal to 1 divided by the what? The asset lifespan to give us the percent, which is what we are going to use. Now this is percent per year, right? So by the time we're also building the, the schedule, we're also going to determine, we're going to agree if we should build the depreciation on monthly basis or we should adopt the end of the year depreciation calculation. So which means you are saying, should we do depreciation on monthly basis or no? We should do more like January to December. So at the end of the December and the end of the FY, that's when we should factor in the depreciation. But we're going to discuss that by the time we go to our calculation, which will be starting in the next session. So yes, 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 yes. I think that's the only thing we need for now. So by the time we start our model build, any other thing we need will definitely be coming back to the inputs and insert them as needed. But for now, I think we have our key components. Let me check our notes. Let me check our notes. Let me check our notes for our inputs. We have our operation already. Okay, yes, we are left with one other thing, which is, I think we've added that our tax. Okay, we have that in our macro data. So at times there could be some additional thing, but let's keep it basic for now. So we have our funding, we have our investing, we have our operation. So is there anything we missed out? Is there anything we missed out? So by the time we start our calculation, we are going to do that. Okay. So now, for remember I discussed something we call group outline. Okay, in the loans, we didn't mention if repayment is straight or okay. Don't worry. We are going to keep it simple. We're just going to amortize it. Yep. Let's leave that for now. So they'll be doing their repayments based on. As I said, if you want to check more, know more about the depths of a thing, I'm not sure it's something we can really cover in this our session. If not, we might not be able to complete this our session. So let me check. I have, so you can look through. Let me check my YouTube channel. So I know I did one series like that, playlist, and I call it debt funding. Yes, so you can see debt funding in project finance. So if you go to my channel, oh sorry, let me go there, see if I'm an external person. Okay, your channel here. Right, so if you go to the playlist, you go to the playlist. So under the playlist, you see debt funding in project finance. Right, so you can check this out and look through. I think it's very, very detailed. Though I didn't finish. Though I did not finish it, but at least you have at least more than 10 videos that you can watch, different repayment profile. So it's very detailed, by the way. So you can look through this free time to also be able to catch up. Right? Right. Right. I think we should call it a session here today. And yes, we've been able to complete this. Uh, and next session, we can pick things up from where we stop, which will be straight to our calculation. Yeah, so Timitako is saying thank you for the, okay, I received a mail that last weekend class was cancelled. Do I receive the link to the recording? Okay, Timitoko, maybe you didn't check your mail. Yes, I think there was an recording one that was set up, right? But my plan was that every meeting we should be changing our meeting link. Yeah, so that's what happened. So we sent another email. It's the new meeting link. So likely when the next session, uh, I know I sent one recording one by cancel and also have another one, but let's see how that play out. Okay. So, all right, thank you everyone, and let's call it a session here, and we pick things up from here next week. So, once again, thank you everyone. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the sacrifice. And please make sure you enjoy the rest of the weekend. And bye for now.